we should be letting to speak.
So watch what you say.
Yes. Thank you. Director Baines,
Present.
Bradford,
Here.
Branscombe,
Yes.
Houlihan,
Here.
Burris, absent Chapman, absent Desmond, absent Dowden Calvillo, absent Frost, here, Diallo, here, Dodd, absent Jones Vergor, here, Guerrero, absent Harris,
Here.
Houdeshell, Director Early for Guerrero, here, thank you. Houdeshell, absent Jennings,
Here.
Joyner,
Here.
Nicely absent Kozlowski,
Here.
Lauren, absent Lozano,
Here.
Sanders, absent Schaefer, absent Stallard,
Here.
Soon,
Here.
Thomas absent Vane, here, Villegas absent West, Vice Chair Saragosa,
Here.
and Chair Kennedy.
Here.
Thank you, we do have a quorum.
Thank you very much. Would you please rise and join me in the pledge of allegiance? Thank you all. I'm going to give a brief welcome here in a moment, but first let's go to public comment. We do have public communications for items not on the agenda. I will first call Kathy Rodriguez-Aguirre to the podium. Good morning.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate the time. So I'm Kathy Rodriguez-Aguirre. I'm the president and CEO of the Sacramento Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. And the real reason that I'm here is I just wanted to thank everyone here, especially the whole team at SACOG, because last month we released our second Hispanic Economic Report. We did the first one in 2021. Our second one was in 2023. We did this based on best practices that happens in Arizona and in Texas, where they release the report every year and they have for the past 20 to 25 years. But when we first did this report, and still in 23, this is the first hyper-local report that goes across 6 counties to let you know about our Latino demographic. And so we covered as much as we could within this. And one of the things that happened is we partnered with Sacramento State again this year. We were able to get a fellowship. So what you'll see in there is there's additional information on health and what COVID did with our community. And then we were really fortunate that we were able to work with SACOG for the other data that's in here. And it was a really great partnership. We really appreciate all the work that Rosie did with us, and James for agreeing to do this with us. And just additional credibility and strength that comes from having a report and having SACOG with us. If you haven't had a chance to look at this report, we all have a copy of it. It's bright and colorful. I want to thank Threefold to help us put it together. We know that data, I think all of us read data all the time, and we get really interested when the numbers mean to the general public we needed to put something a little more vibrant and really pull out the information so they could see it. When you look at this, you'll also see in the back that there's an agenda. In 2021, when we put this together, we also realized it's not enough to put out data. We need to also have an agenda. What are we doing with this information? What is the hopes we might have from this? And so the stakeholders at that point put 8 pillars together and said, if we can make progress in these areas, then we're going to be closer to making paths to prosperity for all. This year when we put it together, we kept the agenda in there, but we also added some collaborations that are happening, whether they were with us directly or just with other organizations that we know are doing all our work. For instance, like Valor Vision is doing a lot of great work. We wanted to point that out because we find that there's a lot of people, a lot of organizations that are working together to really ensure that when we're talking about inclusive economy, when we're talking about equity, that we're talking about really making sure that everyone has those access to opportunities. There's a lot of people in that work. It takes all of us together. We often say, Punto Sacramento, together Sacramento, and we wanted to really pull out that information. So what we also hope is that for all of you, as you are making decisions and looking at where policy is made and where investment needs to be made and strategic partnerships, we hope that one, you'll look to us for those partnerships, and then also you look at this report. We often heard in the past that we didn't really know what was happening in the Latino community. Data was often brought from San Diego, San Francisco, LA, where people think that a lot of But when you look at this, you'll see we have a very large and growing and successful Latino community right here. And for each of the counties that's represented, you'll see information for you here. So with that, I just wanted to thank you so much again for the partnership, to know that you have a partner in us, and to feel free to reach out to us for anything that you might need. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Thank you for being here, and we look forward to continued partnership. Director Branson would like to say something at this point on the agenda.
Thank you. First, I'm happy to be here in South Air, Sacramento. My first home was south of Broadway, not this far south, but I know this neighborhood well. It's good to be back. Very quickly, I just want to bring some attention to some matters that affect Marysville with respect to Caltrans. And I'm certain many of you have seen an article originally published in the Los Angeles Times focusing on District 3 practices as it relates to the work on Interstate 80. There's one aspect there of the article is with respect to something commonly known as piecemealing. Piecemealing is taking a big project, breaking it down into smaller pieces, and the allegation not really spelled out in the article is that this allows District 3 to avoid high scrutiny of their CEQA presentations on these projects, breaking it down, and it mutes any potential public resistance. There's also something else with respect to District 3 that I think deserves attention. We are in process in Marysville of updating our general plan. And I'm certain many of you are aware that the California Attorney General's office has an entire task force dedicated to reviewing general plans, particularly with respect to compliance with environmental justice parameters. We've been going through that, and it's been interesting to note that compliance, which is mandated, and if you don't do it, the California Attorney General will make his presence, his team's presence known. A number of Caltrans plans, activities, building, what have you, are in direct, they're hostile to environmental justice. It's an interesting thing to note, and District 3 right now is under something of a microscope, and we're in litigation with them on some other matters. Anyway, sharing Marysville perspective on what's going on with District 3. Thank you.
Thank you very much. With that, we can move to our consent calendar.
Sorry, Chair Kennedy, we do have someone online who's listening to the meeting who'd like to make a public comment.
Let's do that, thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, our public commenter is Alan Hirsch with YOLO Mobility. Alan, you are in the meeting. You have 3 minutes to speak.
Thank you very much. Firstly, I want to note that the agenda notes that you cannot make remote public comments by Zoom. Thank you for letting me in. If this is a permanent change, you aren't going to allow Zoom. I noticed I was let in. The agenda says I can't be. So thank you for letting me in. Second, the recording is really hard to hear. There's echoing. I can hardly hear what's going on. You need to basically pick your room so you don't have echoes. Third, I would echo the concern about the whistleblower at Caltrans, the high-level whistleblower was covered in the LA Times, particularly as it affects the widening of the YOLO Causeway and the widening of YOLO 80. This is part of a large piecemealing of the entire widening of the I-8 corridor from Cardenas Bridge all the way to Sacramento. And this report on SB1 requires Caltrans to uncover all this thing. And we see that Caltrans has piecemealed this entire widening of the corridor, and it's created the corner on the causeway. So we have Caltrans clearly violating the piecemealing. The next thing, UC Davis has published papers showing that Caltrans has consistently understated induced demand. In other words, it consistently overstated the effectiveness of widening the freeway. Caltrans has violated the environmental impact statement, and this has become more critical with SB 743. We have an agency that basically is designed to build freeways and basically feel like it violates laws and not confront the problem with climate change. I urge you as elected officials to basically take control back from Caltrans in terms of how we deal with our transportation in our region. We have a climate crisis and we know we need to reduce driving. Widening freeways works us in the wrong direction. Caltrans itself is going to have a 6.9-foot sea level rise by the end of the century. That's going to flood out the Capitol Corridor, flood out Highway 37, and spending $500 billion to make build the dike around the Jefferson Airport. We have a crisis. We need to take action now. We can't wait a year, 5 years, 10 years. We need to take action now. Please take control. Take Caltrans back to the citizens. And please, they need scrutiny and not following environmental laws, particularly District 3. The high-level whistleblower to talk about what's going on in Caltrans. Please take control of our streets and roads back from Caltrans. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alan. Is there any other public comment?
There's no other public comment.
All right, well, then that takes us to our consent calendar, items 1 through 10, which are on consent because they're considered non-controversial and have been heard by, most have been heard, if not all, have been heard by other committees of the SACOG board. At this time, is there anything that any board member would like to remove from consent or has any questions of staff?
Through the chair.
Yes.
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any member of the public that would like to address the board on an item that's on consent? Seeing none, do we have anyone telephonically to vote, or can we do this all en masse?
We do not have any board members online, so we can do this in mass.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Thank you very much. And now it's my pleasure to officially welcome you to South Sacramento, or a portion of South Sacramento, in the district that I am proud to represent, the district that I was born and raised in. You're going to, I hope, as many of you as can will be on the tour. We're going to make this meeting go as quickly as possible so we can get on the tour and get everybody out of here in the regular amount of time. But I think that it's valuable to go on this tour, and I highly encourage you to for a number of reasons. One is you'll see communities coming together, working together to make change in their communities. This is a very diverse area, and by diverse I mean socioeconomically, I mean racially. You have some of the most challenged neighborhoods just to the south of here in what we call the avenues. Mr. Sanders isn't here, but there's actually a community over there called Cordova that nobody knows about. It's really a challenging place to be at times. The Avenues, which is the neighborhood very close to here, has almost zero home ownership and a large number of multifamily that are, and I'll be blunt, that are owned and managed by absentee landlords from the Bay Area who have been extremely difficult to get to actually invest in their properties and the area. You'll see some of those depressed areas, but we continue to work hard and even put pressure on where it's necessary. Some of the things you'll see on the tour, I'm going to tell you about this place in a moment, but one of the things that is significant, just down the street here, a couple of blocks away, is the former Campbell Soup, which you'll have an opportunity to see. The Campbell Soup was sold about 12 years ago, and it was actually a bidding process, and Hackman Investments won that process. It's been somewhat of a challenge working with the new ownership, relatively new ownership, because they too are from Los Angeles and have bigger projects than this, and so keeping it on the front burner has been difficult, but it's a huge asset. Campbell Soup, you have the former Campbell Soup, now Capital Commerce Center. You have an independent water system with very high quality water. In fact, Pabst Blue Ribbon was very close to putting a brewery in here, largely because of the water, the purity of the water. You have a rail spur that goes right through it. You have redundancy in electricity, so it's really a tremendous opportunity for redevelopment. Hackman Investments has put approximately $35 million recently into rebuilding and tearing down, actually, much of the property, because these were properties that were antiquated. You know, they were built decades ago for a canning operation. They tried marketing it as is, was not successful, so they went back and now they're redoing all the infrastructure, meaning electrical, roadways, tearing down buildings in order to put up a Class A industrial complex here in hopefully the very near future. So there's great opportunities there. It's close to my heart. When I was a kid, I used to sit with an ice cream cone on the top of a tree in my yard, and I could see the big Campbell Soup water tower from my house, which was then, I wish they didn't, but they changed it. It's no longer painted like a Campbell Soup can. And then this place here is very unique in many ways. When I was on the Sacramento City Unified School Board, we had to look at closing 13 schools because enrollment was far down by 12,000, and you can't, in any business, you can't operate when you lose that much of your customer base. You can't operate as if it didn't happen. So we had to take a real hard look. It was not popular with everybody, and this was in the district that I represented. This school was. At the time, this school was serving about 135 kids, which is really not sustainable for a school. And so we did close it. It was largely lost a lot of population because of the closure of Campbell Soup and families moving out. And as I said, it was not popular. Some of the most unpleasant meetings that as a public official I've had the opportunity to attend were when you talk about closing people's schools. This school, as I said, was serving about 135. What we did was, if there's ever been a case of making lemonade out of lemons, that's what you're looking at here today. Instead of serving 135 K-6 students and not having the resources, because that's such a small population that they deserve, this facility now, because La Familia Counseling Center took it over several years ago, and now serves, I would dare to say, thousands of people every year, not 135 kids. Including mental health services for youth. They were on the front line of when we started vaccinating for COVID-19 and testing for COVID-19. They offer after-school programs. You can see Fairy Tale Town's Playland over there, or Adventureland, which is interesting because it gives kids an opportunity to almost no rules express themselves and tear things apart and build things. And really show creativity, and it's been a great asset to this area. Although we had to put a fence around it because if you'll see it, it's supposed to look like that, but neighbors thought it was illegal dumping. So we actually had to cover it up, and but it's been great. 916 Sacramento, which with its reading and writing programs, I mean, this is really a huge success story. So while you look around and you see, you know, walls and some creative painting and all that, what's going on in these buildings has truly changed lives in South Sacramento and throughout. I mean, La Familia goes all the way down to Galt. But for this area in particular, this has really been a jewel. Next door, the Opportunity Center is going to be built eventually. We're still fundraising for it, which will provide greater opportunities for job creation, job training, even in electric vehicle maintenance. So there's really exciting stuff going on right here at Ground Zero. And other than that, you'll have an opportunity to see the corridors that make up this area. Mack Road, Stockton Boulevard, Florin Road, Franklin, all really the heart and soul of this area. We don't have, like a lot of your communities do, we don't have a lot of chambers of commerce down here, except for, of course, the Hispanic Chamber has a great presence. But, you know, we really depend on those P-bids to be boots on the ground every single day, 7 days a week to help make this area what it is. And they do a fantastic job. But mostly what I want you to see, I hope that you'll take away, is the impact that you all have had and that our staff has had in this area. There are many projects that you will see if you go on the tour, including the San Juan Apartments, which is going to be affordable housing, and which was once just a blighted property that would not have happened without Green Means Go, would not have happened without SACOG and all of you. You'll see complete streets projects that are coming online, bus rapid transit that's coming online. Again, none of this would happen without those of you sitting around the table and say hi. So on behalf of all of the residents down here, thank you for that. And it's interesting to see how many people have ties here. You heard Mr. Branscombe, not too far. Mr. Lozano, I found out, did not know until today, grew up just down the street. South Sacramento, and of course, Director Vang is, the city council member that represents part of this area. And so it really, when you're from South Sacramento, correct me if I'm wrong, Director Vang, I don't care where you end up going and what you end up doing, you're always a South Sacramento. So thank you so much for being here today, and let's let the festivities begin. It's now my pleasure I'm sorry, I got off script there, that's dangerous. So we have a special opportunity today. I don't know that it's a good opportunity, but it's an opportunity. And that's to recognize Director Tom Stallard, who will be leaving the board at the end of this year. I never thought I'd say those words. And we're honoring Tom because we want to be certain to provide enough time for board members to share any parting remarks you might have, and of course let Tom speak as well. It's with great pleasure that I recognize Tom's work. Since I've been on this board, Tom's been kind of the sage member who actually has, the second most longevity, but has served on this board representing both the city of Woodland as well as Yolo County. Tom started in 1996 on this board. Back in 1996, just to give you some context, the hot thing at the time was the Macarena, and in which Tom finally did master in 2018. And of all the years that Tom's been here, I think that he's one of those guys that he doesn't say a lot, doesn't say it loud, but when he does, he's like the E.F. Hutton of the state. And so, for everything he's done, he's been the legislation committee chair, policy and innovation committee chair, the board vice chair and board chair. So Tom, I want to personally say, not just from the perspective as a chair, but more importantly, from the perspective of a new member many years ago, how much help you were to me, and I just sat back and listened and learned. And I think you've forgotten today more than I've learned since then. But I appreciate, and I'm sure we all do appreciate, all of the efforts that you've given, not just to represent your jurisdiction, but again, like some of your past Yolo County cohorts, I will say, really reflect the regionalism that we all strive for. So I want to thank you very much, and if you'll come to the podium. So with all of that, is this on? All of that said, we just have a very small memento of our thanks. The thanks that you really get.
Is there a check?
But I do want to say that, while this is a small momentum of our thanks, our real thanks comes from our heart and everything you've done for this region. So on behalf of the SACON board, I would like to give you this, and thank you for your service.
Thank you. I actually couldn't sleep too well last night thinking about this. It's hard to say goodbye to this organization after so many years, 18 in all. And I tell people I've served in 2 different centuries, including 2 millennia, across 4 different decades. And I've seen a lot of change, obviously. We have cities today that weren't cities when I started, Rancho Cordova, Citrus Heights. And look at what's happened in Folsom. When I was on SACON initially, we only had 16 board members. Folsom, Hialeton, and Gull charity board seat. They were called the big cities. I don't know if you use that term anymore. So we actually met at a conference room so small that people who wanted to listen in had to look through the door. We had only like 5 seats at the back of the room. Anyway, we moved. We sold 3000 S Street, which really was, we built the building for ourselves, but it was not a big building. We bought into the next building. Angelo Sarkopoulos bought it, and our interest became $1 million more than we put into it. So lots of cool things have happened over the years. For me, I have learned so much from all of you and from those who've come before you. I mean, I really lapped multiple generations of SACOG board members. It's really cool. It's always been fun. My initial goals when I first came to SACOG, first of all, nobody really loved or wanted this assignment in any of the jurisdictions. It was kind of, oh, who'll cover that one? And so when Mike McGowan was there initially, former supervisor from West Sacramento, I said, well, I'd be interested in that because I've always been kind of a regionalist anyway. One of the key facts for me was of our working population in Woodland, half leave our community every day and go to your communities. Half of our jobs, we have more jobs than workers in Woodland, if you didn't know it. Half of our workers come from your communities. So, hello, our people are regional. They shop where they want, they buy cars where they want, they go to church where they want. I go to church in a different community. So, you know, our people are regional. We want to be sure that we're not provincial. And SACOG is the place where we think bigger. And I think it's exciting. Remy Sco mentioned so many cool things have happened over the time. I would offer one little caution, and that's be careful of Mission Creek. You know, we are a transportation agency. That's job one around here. And I hope we don't ever lose that focus. This isn't my first time leaving this board, as you know. I lost an election in 2002 I left. And the SACOG board gave me this wonderful book by Jim Collins, and they all signed it. And of all these signatures, there's only 3 left on the board. Casey Lasagna's signature's in here. Of course, Lynette and Barbara Beckholt, who's not in the room today, I don't believe. So anyway, and don't be too nice to me because I might come back. I'm actually trying to recruit an alternate. Myra, who's been here for me, will probably come in on behalf of Woodland. The last thing I might as well just say, so I can sit down and you can get on with business, is when I graduated from law school, my grandmother made a cross stitch for me. Here it is. It's my operating system, OS1. I've never felt the need for another. It says love makes everything easy. Keep doing the good work you're doing. Thank you.
I'd like to open it up to any member of the board that would like to comment this time. Yes.
Thank you, Chair Kennedy. I think, Chair, you've said before about not piling on when things have been said well, and Chair Kennedy, your words, I think, were stated very well. However, I just can't let Tom go without piling on. I mean, this gentleman, you've been around 18 years, but for me personally, and I'm sure many others, you've been so welcoming when I joined the board, but not just the board, but when I joined elected office. I can't think of someone more, you said you're a regionalist, and that's totally true. Can't think of anyone more good-natured and welcoming than you, and willing to impart your knowledge and just share your knowledge with all of us. We're gonna, hopefully you'll still do the tours cap to cap, if that doesn't stop. But it's just another testament to how much knowledge you have and your generosity in sharing. So we will miss you on this board. I was very disappointed to hear that you're stepping down for that sake. So, but we wish you well and look forward to continuing to work with you in this region.
Thank you. Director Joyner.
Thank you, Patrick. I'll do my best not to pile on either. Those of you who are relatively new to this board can have no idea of the institutional knowledge and memory we are about to lose. And quite frankly, I think that Tom has been
board meeting is being held on November 9th this year. Staff doesn't have adequate time to pull that information together to bring you something. It would have to be concluded essentially at the end of this month to bring you something on November 9th.
Well, we've known this has been coming for 2 years.
Well, I think, just again, in preparing for the December action, we always bring it to the December board meeting, but looking at the calendar, it's the board's pleasure, and we certainly could proceed forward with a December 21st action, but we're just concerned that there may not be a quorum on December 21st.
Understood. So, without going into great detail, I'm going to say this, the whole Measure A MOU delegation of authority, and the way that played out with the SACOG's attorney of 20 years and former interim executive director issued a letter and resigned over what was taking place. In my mind, that was a major red flag that should have brought that delegation of authority back to the full board. And this thing hit the papers, everything else. And so, long story short, I've largely lost trust in delegating authority unless it's absolutely time critical and essential to do so. And because of that, I can't support it.
Thank you, Director Joyner.
Sheriff?
Yes, sir.
If I could add one comment on that, and I appreciate the.
You're not going to resign, are you?
Don't give them any ideas.
I'll give the comment first and we'll see how it goes. So, in response at the committee meeting as well, I did want to clarify that delegating it to the strategic planning committee, that is a Brown Act meeting, and so that meeting will have a posted agenda. It'll be open to the public and it'll allow for public participation. So under the Brown Act, that would even include directors who aren't part of the strategic planning committee could come and make public comments at that meeting. And so I say that with respect to Director Joyner's comments. I don't mean to disagree with those comments in any way, but only to point out that if the board does approve the delegation and any of you board members who aren't members of that committee want to comment on it, you're certainly welcome to do so at that time.
Thank you.
I have a question. So you brought up a good point in regards to December 21st. Is there a rule where we could either move back the November 9th meeting to the end of November and or move December 1st to the beginning of December?
I appreciate you asking me that question because now I will punt it over to Mr. Corbus.
So, again, just to summarize here, we wanted to give you an option to be able to submit by December 15th, right? So the option is you delegate, which you do before. We don't typically like to do this, but when time is of the essence, sometimes you delegate to one of your committees to make a final decision. In this case, we wanted you to delegate to the strategic planning committee, right? Will be December 11th, and anybody is welcome to come. The deadline that is published is December 15th to submit the RTIP. To your question, Director Early, I don't think, given how hard it is to get it together, we can look at a special board meeting, I suppose. It's difficult to get that together. So we wanted to get you to approve this so you have the option of delegating to the Strategic Planning Committee that it meets in time the December 15th deadline. If you're not comfortable doing that, then that's fine. That's your decision this morning. And there may be some flexibility, maybe in the December 15th, maybe we could take it December 21st, and they'll take it, but we're talking about transportation funding, and I don't think from our staff's perspective, and we can explain why, that we can get it ready for November 9th. So that's why we want to give you an option of delegating, again, to one of your own committees that essentially serves as an executive committee that any one of you as board members could show up for and participate in. Again, if you're not comfortable doing that, you don't have to vote for it this morning. And you can, but we just wanted to make sure that we had that option if we needed it. We could certainly give you a status report at the November Transportation Committee, the December Transportation Committee, but we felt like the December 11th gave you an option in case we needed to get approval and then submit it on the 15th, and not deadline.
So there's already been concern expressed over whether we can get a quorum on the 21st. I've made my feelings known, and as have other members contacted me as well. Vice Chair has, an interesting question. Why can't we do a special meeting on the 11th instead of the strategic planning, and then this is a moot issue?
Yeah, and if there was anything that needed to be done at a strategic planning, and I'm sure those of us that are on it could stay afterwards to do a meeting right after the meeting. Then we wouldn't have to worry about the 21st.
So make December 11th a full board meeting instead of December 21st.
Yes.
Would it be possible to get a show of hands of who's available December 11th? So Director Jennings, maybe not December 11th?
No, I'm looking now.
Sorry, that's okay. And Director Frost, are you available December 11th?
She's looking at her calendar.
Oh, thank you, sorry. Not to rush anyone, but it just gives us an idea of what we would be looking
I can
at.
move my calendar around.
Okay, and I can send a poll out too, just so you can have a little more time to look at your calendar.
I'm good.
And just an additional point, so that, oh, sorry, there's an earthquake test, so just to start freaking out, that's what's happening.
Happened yesterday.
Yeah, that was a real one.
That was a real one.
Not everyone's kind of but just, Mr. Chair, just December 11th, for those of you who are not on the Policy and Innovation Committee, that's already scheduled for the morning, so we certainly can count on those members of the board being available for that time as well. But we'll get back to you on that.
Let's not solve it all right here, right now, and have everybody looking at their phones. But let's have the conversation sooner rather than later and talk about this offline. Is that okay with the board? Okay.
And Chair, if I can make a suggestion?
Yes.
Perhaps we approve the delegation today, but if the board's able to meet on the 11th and we have a quorum, that delegation's moot, the full board would act, and that way we just have a fail-safe just in case.
Yeah, I don't love that.
The issue we're just making reference to, right, is we have to have 5 county supervisors present, otherwise the board cannot act. So all the board can be present except for 1 supervisor, and we can still move forward with the delegation by calling it an SPC meeting.
Okay. So what's the will of the board?
Just to be clear, for the strategic committee, if other board members came, they wouldn't have voting rights, so, right? So it's actually not the same. I just want to make that clear.
Correct. They would be able to speak. I'm happy to explain more substance on the policy issues if you want, what the action is we're talking about delegating, but I don't want to belabor it if you want to move on.
Director Bradstrom.
With respect to, is there something in particular with respect to the RTIP that you object to, or is it just?
No, it's the delegation of authority.
It's just the concept,
Correct.
protocol.
Yes.
I think that, and I remember this came up with us before, so I think the real crucial piece is to make sure, do we have the supervisors that we need? And so I think that's something maybe we can get now to say, are they available? Because that seems to always tip it for us. If we have.
And that can all be determined if we do a poll here real soon. And I mean, we can have this answer really quickly, I would think. So what is the will of the board as far as item number 11? Is there a motion of any kind?
Chair Kennedy, can I make a
Yes.
suggestion? Given some, clearly some hesitation here, right? But here's what I would suggest. I'm looking down the table here. Is table it today, okay? Let's see if we can pull off a December 11th board meeting, because that actually solves 2 problems, right? Which is December 21st is hard for some of you. If we can do that, great. That's what we'll do. And if we can't, then I would just suggest, we'll keep working on staff, think about timing, and then if we still believe you need a delegation authority, we'll bring it back in November. Okay. So, table it this morning, let's work on getting December 11th on the books for everybody. And please, I'm going to make this request. When you hear anything from Lynette Espinoza, please get back to her. Thumbs up, thumbs down. I'm not talking to all of you, I'm talking to some of you in the room. It makes it much easier then to figure out, because we don't want to be caught for many reasons with a quorum December 11th. So the sooner you can do that, it's very, very helpful, and we will get that taken care of. We'll do the full board meeting. We'll give you December 21st back, and we'll remove the concern that we're hearing this morning.
Would that board meeting be limited to this one item so that we could open the meeting?
I think it would be a full board meeting. It would be in place of December 21st. We accelerated 10 days, December 11th. We bring the committee items from December committees to that full board meeting. You just do an earlier full board meeting on the 11th.
I think that that's a wise recommendation. Is there any pushback from the board on tabling this at this time?
Need a motion?
I mean, no, we're just tabling it, so no motions necessary. Okay, thank you, everybody. This is why we're SACOG. We have robust discussions. Next item, item number 12. All right, our next item is number 12, approved carbon reduction program guidelines and budget. I believe that Christina Svenska is here.
Hi, good morning. Yes, thank you. So we are bringing forward today the carbon reduction program guidelines. As a reminder, this is a 5-year program that emerged from the bipartisan infrastructure law. In June of 2023, we brought forward to the board a strategy that you all approved that presented both a near-term and a long-term strategy for how we plan to utilize these funds. So today, in front of you is our proposal for utilizing those near-term funds. So it's the first 2 years of the carbon reduction program funding. So this really follows the strategy that you approved in June of 2023, with the near-term money focusing on 3 key areas. Those areas being trail plan implementation, taking a look at zero-emission vehicle planning and capital, things like studies to better understand what the needs are for infrastructure within a region, to be able to plan for zero emission, and also mode shift projects that focus a little bit on intelligent transportation systems and other technology-focused projects to help shift modes and encourage alternate use of transportation. So this program would propose about $7.4 million in planning and capital grants to the 6-county region. We would anticipate a call for projects in November of this year, with applications due in early 2024. So with the information you have, staff recommends, and the TC, the Transportation Committee, also recommended that the board approve the guidelines included in your staff report, as well as the budget, and authorize a call for projects. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Okay, are there any questions from the board?
Very quickly,
Yes.
I confess to being the no vote that caused it to be on the action calendar. I may have been more judicious with my vote had I known it was going to trigger moving to the action calendar. My no vote was primarily a reaction to the messaging included in the preamble to the presentation by the staffer. I will be in favor of this meeting.
Thank you. Anyone else?
With that, I'll move.
Okay. Motions or second?
Minor seconds.
Okay. Motion and a second. Is there any public comment?
There's no public comment.
Okay. And all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Thank you very much. We're going to mix things up a little bit because of scheduling. I'm going to take item 15 next, engage in power implement draft framework review.
Good morning, Rosie Ramos, Project Manager for EEI, and Nicole as well will be presenting. So we will go through our PowerPoint a little quicker than anticipated. But as a reminder, the Engage in Power Implement program is our $3.8 million funding program to invest in the region's disadvantaged communities. We started in 2020. We've done a lot of work since. And we've done a lot of engagement in the last couple of months, this year, actually the whole year, with our consultant, HR&A and AIM Consulting. What we really want to highlight today is that the work that you have in the attachment is the culmination of the efforts that our consulting team did when they listened to the community organizations, when we talked to our jurisdiction partners, and they put together a lot of recommendations. Staff will be using that to create a simplified, high-level framework that will come to the November Transportation Committee for an action. And with that framework and the accompanying document that you have before you, will create the guidelines and the pre-application period, and materials, excuse me. As a reminder, the envisioned outcomes of EEI is a strong collaboration between our jurisdictions and community-based organizations. It was highlighted that this site here was a strong community-led process that the community needed, and that's exactly the type of work that EEI wants to help fund across the entire region. We want to rebuild trust, we want community support for the project concepts, and we want to make sure that we have a process that really is rooted in the community needs and is ready for the next steps around implementation. We have examples that we've heard from across different partners. MTC has come and shared their community-based transportation plan, where we've talked about the participatory budgeting methods that they've done in different communities. We've also heard from our partners at SJCOG, where they've done a mobility, the Stockton Mobility program that they have bike share and car share and active transportation models. We also have a great example from Long Beach and Cambodia Town, where they really focused on creating a grassroots plan for their community, with youth education centers and cafes as examples, street trees and vertical gardens, and community land trusts as examples of things that came out of that. And of course, Franklin District Community Playbook, which you will hear about today. I'm going to pass it over to Nicole to really briefly go over some of the key things that we've learned.
Thanks, Rosie. So as a little reminder, over the past 4 to 6 months, we've been engaging in focus group discussions with about 37 community-based organizations and city and county staff from all of our member agencies. We have come to you before with some of this feedback, but I did just want to help ground what we're presenting on today with some of what we've heard. I think our main key takeaways from our several months effort of engagement is that we really do need to have strong collaboration to help rebuild trust between our CBOs and jurisdictions. And more importantly, I think on the SACOG side, we do have a responsibility to provide some strong technical assistance and help facilitate and manage those partnerships and discussions. Oops, wrong way. All right, we're skipping for the sake of time today. I do want to point out that some foundational core dimensions of equity that we want to be able to honor in our EEI program framework include structural equity, procedural equity, and distributional equity. So real quick, structural equity addresses underlying structural factors and policies that uphold inequities. And so we're going to commit to correcting past harms and preventing future unintended consequences. An example of that is previous zoning regulations. Procedural equity designs decision-making processes that are transparent and inclusive, and it acknowledges the imbalances in power and technical expertise that often exist when marginalized communities work with public agencies in decision-making. And this is something that we heard highlighted many times in our discussions with community-based organizations. And third, we have distributional equity, which will ensure the fair and diverse distribution of services and resources and places a priority on supporting our communities with the greatest needs. So the program framework has a few key elements, which again will be in the attachment, and that will be taking next month as well. But we want to focus on our project funding guidelines. Our pre-application process, we want to provide at least 2 to 3 months to help create those partnerships and support successful outcomes. Our application process, it might not sound exciting, but it's very important, our funding and invoicing processes to help remove some of the larger burdens that we often place on smaller public agencies and our CBOs. Our project execution and program evaluation. We've heard that we need to have some clear definitions around our success and evaluation metrics. And then Rosie's going to chat a little bit more with the time that we have left.
So I will quickly go through some of these items. As mentioned, the document that you have is being translated into some of these high-level things that we're talking about here, the eligible applicants and grant awards. The cities and counties and community-based organizations, we have recommendations for $150,000 to $300,000 awards with a maximum of $500,000. There's also a recommendation for a CPO-only pot, and that's something that we want to keep open, but really assess as we go through the pre-application process. Are we seeing community organizations that are ready to administer these funds? Can they do it on their own? But it would never, and I want to preface that it wouldn't exactly be them entirely on their own. There's still a collaboration needed with their cities and counties, right? There's still mechanisms that we can add in for them to be partners, but it would just mean that the city or county wouldn't have to be the fiscal agent for them to do this work. So through that pre-application process, we want to have that opportunity to assess, and if there is not an eligible program or a concept that's coming through the pre-app process, then of course that money can just go back to the regular pot. And another thing I want to acknowledge is the need for CBOs to get advanced money to start the work, and there's a recommendation for 5 to 10% of the award to go as an advance to cover those startup costs for an organization. The pre-application process is a big piece of this, meaning that we're going to be doing a lot of workshops, a lot of meetings with folks, with the CBOs, with cities. If you participate in the Civic Lab process, it's a lot of that modeling of really doing some pre-work before we get to the actual application itself, and really wanting to facilitate those partnerships with folks. The application itself, we want to give folks 2 to 3 months to apply, and wanting to make sure that we have everything clear and concise applications, and the format is easy to follow. Metrics and review will be very critical, wanting to create an EEI review with folks from underrepresented communities, folks that understand where the applications are coming from, and then of course looking at the board to be diverse, and making sure that we have clear partnership structures to make sure that the program can run smoothly when implementation comes. As a very fast overview, again, the document is going to help us create a simplified framework in November. We will take it to the Transportation Committee. The pre-application period will be January through April. In spring, we'll call for applications aiming for April, and having applications due in June and awarding in September. That concludes the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And as has been said, this is informational. It will come before the board in November. But I think it's appropriate and timely that we did it today as an informational item, because this program will have direct impact on what we're going to see on the tour today and what we see right here in this area. So thank you very much. Any questions? Yes.
I have two. So one is, I think I know, but I'd love for just to call it out clearly. How will you actually ensure those equity components that you named, the procedural, I think the inclusion and the other one, the third one, how will you actually ensure that that's going to happen? Like, what are the checks and balances? And then again, I have two questions, and so I'll just name the other. And this is more of a suggestion. On the upfront for the grant, I think you called out 5 to 10%. I would actually suggest more like 20 or 25% upfront. And there is some state legislation that was just passed that actually California state departments actually now provide a higher percentage. And like I said, I think it's something like 20, 25% would be my suggestion. So there is precedent.
Yeah, thank you for those questions. To the most recent question, that is a great win. I think it's an amazing thing. Unfortunately, our funds are still federal, so they wouldn't allow us to do like what the state is trying to do. The 5 to 10% is based on the mix of dollars that we have. So the majority is still STBG funds. We do have a small portion of the local funds, which is why we're going with that 5 to 10. But it will be on an as-needed cases. Some community organizations might actually be able to fund some, that have bigger capacity, and so that just maybe that's where we do less than 5% potentially, and so leaving the opportunity for small organizations. So it'll be a mix. But I do appreciate that note. And then how are we checking the checks and balances for equity? Well, I do want to state that the process that we've done already, I think, is really talking to the procedural equity piece. We could have done a framework without going to the community, but we're really trying to build in that engagement early on. And so I believe that the framework that we're creating is rooted in what we're hearing from the CBOs. And that's the metrics that we're going to be developing are also going to be based on that framework that we have. And so that's where we're going back to what the community said, and in my opinion is where we're checking those, having that balance of equitable inclusion there.
Thank you. Yes.
Well, thank you. I'm new here, but I don't see a nexus with transportation with this.
Great question. So this does have a component of being a little bit broader than transportation. But at the end of the day, we're still looking to use the SCBG funds that will work, allow us to do educational processes with the community. It does enable us to do, it includes workforce development, education, does include surface transportation projects. So the SCBG funds are still transportation rooted, there's just a little bit more flexibility. But at the end of the day, the process is just the engagement step right now and listening to folks. And a lot of the issues that we will see are still going to be a nexus to transportation, we believe. A lot of the things and equities are still rooted around that, whether it's the safety of getting around on a bike or by foot, access to bus routes, maybe even a grocery store, thinking about having an access to a grocery store and what you have to do to get there is still connected to transportation. So we still believe that there is a strong nexus to transportation. It might not just be, creating a new transit route or something like that.
Sure. I think it might be useful if staff would clarify the connection to transportation on any matter.
Yeah, look, I just want to emphasize what Rosie
And I have
said.
no objection here, it's
Just to be clear, we'll come back in November with the final proposal. It is absolutely transportation, but not limited to, right? So there is more money than ever before for many of these things. Starting with Roseville and our offsite workshop there and Director Gore giving you that explanation all the way to today in the tour, the idea is how can we actually, in some ways, as government, get out of the way and let communities shape projects themselves so they can actually be competitive for transportation funds and more, right? And I think that's a very fertile ground to talk about what else. And that comes with our partnerships with the cities and counties, and because we don't do workforce, but if the city is there saying, look, actually that would be a great piece of this because we need some upskilling, we don't want to exclude that necessarily, right? But it's a good question. So it is transportation, but it isn't necessarily limited to that. So stay tuned for the guidelines coming in November.
A jurisdictional question.
Yeah.
I think that with, decades of inequities in the way transportation funding has been spent and where it's been spent and on whom it's been spent in planning, I think that there is a clear nexus here to transportation inequities. It also makes us more, correct me if I'm wrong, but it makes us more competitive down the road if we're engaging in these activities as we go for funding from the feds and state.
I will note that there is, I'm currently serving on the Reconnected Communities Highways to Boulevard Review Committee, and they are doing exactly this program just at the state level. And so we're seeing a lot of state and federal programs asking, what was your community process? What did you do early on to engage? So I agree.
Chair Kennedy, if everyone has any other comments from the board. I just want to say our staff has worked really hard on this, and what is really important and interesting, and I hope all of you are absorbing this, is, as I said earlier, and I'm shorthanding, we are in government our own worst enemy sometimes. What we've learned through a lot of this CBO engagement is our practices, our procurement, we can do things differently. We can be more streamlined. We can make things simpler. And we can actually try to do more meaningful engagement and to listen and learn from our Racial Equity Action Plan, number one. Second, broadly, the staff here has worked really hard. I think as some of you know, there's been more county money from the last funding round to include the action that you took last month to make this a 6-county program. So really delighted that is true because we believe this has application in every county and every jurisdiction. So I just want to thank the staff for all their work and stay tuned for the November proposal.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? No, as I said, this was informational. Next two items to the presenters and the chair, although Chair Gore is not here, but I believe Director Bradford is prepared. So number 13 is the Mega Region Working Group report out. If Director Bradford would like to make a brief update, or you can also choose to kick it to a future meeting, it's your call.
We can move it to a future meeting. I know we're tight on time and we need to get on to the tour, so.
Thank you, Director. Okay. Next is number 14, Funding Round Working Group report out, and that would be Director Joyner.
That can wait until the next meeting as well.
Okay, I appreciate your cooperation. Great. Now we come to our reports. Start with the chair's report, which I rarely do, but this time I want to point out that just last week the governor signed AB 350. I think we're all well aware of that. But my reason for bringing it up isn't to let you know that it happened. But it's really to thank every board member and the staff for, this was a full court press. For those of you that wrote letters, those of you that got other jurisdictions and others within your jurisdiction to write letters, those of you that even joined me walking the corridors of the Capitol and staff, it's really was the biggest team effort I've seen on behalf of SACOG. So thank you for all of the efforts made at the staff and the board level. Mr. Corliss.
All right, real quick, Youth Leadership Academy, you know that we've got the next cohort of the YLA coming. We're really delighted in the past cycles. We've had really good diversity from around the region, but I'm going to call you out right now. Here's the applications we've had so far. Davis has had 1, and Arado County 2 applications. This is right, what are the applications? Yes, good, thank you. Folsom 4, Lincoln 1, Rockland 1, City of Sacramento 8, and Woodland 2. So that's awesome from your jurisdictions. You know this. The more that you all get involved and get connections with those schools and get the word out, and even when we accept the cohort and even checking in with your students, it's awesome. And that really makes a difference. So just wanted to run down that list. And if you're not on that list, let's make sure you get on that list.
The deadline is? The deadline is?
November 10th? November 10th.
I have to leave now.
You're going to go talk to your school.
I didn't hear of Roseville.
Yeah? Right on your phone. So that's that. We mentioned already we have committees coming up in November, but then we're going to do an early board meeting November the 9th. It will be at Sacramento State University, last offsite of the year, 9 a.m. And then we will roll right into a joint board meeting of SMUD, the Sacramento Air District, Sacramento Regional Transit, and SACOG, and it won't just be focused on the Sacramento County efforts, I promise you, but it's going to be pretty historic, and Chair Kennedy gets to chair 3 of those 4 organizations, so he's got a little bit of the shape, and then I think that actually concludes my report.
Thank you very much. Is there any member of the board that would like to share any information with us at this time?
Through Chair.
Yes.
I'd just like to take this opportunity to invite you all out to the 44th annual Mega Ethan, which is a Sikh parade. It'll be held on November 5th in Yuba City. And it's the largest of its kind outside of India. There'll be over 100,000 in attendance. And if you have any questions or concerns, feel free to give me a call. The invitations to all members, board, staff, your families, friends. Hope to see you there. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Bates. Anyone else? Director Lozano? No?
I'd just like to apologize to everyone for being late tonight. It's my State of the City address for Citrus Heights, so it's a very, very busy time for me. Certainly like anybody would like to tune in. I'm pretty excited about my 40-minute speech.
40 minutes?
Yes, 40 minutes. So and lots of really fun things and exciting things for Citrus Heights for the next year. Thank you.
Mr.
Vice Chair.
As you all know, it's Apple Hill season, so come on up. I always tell people, come during the week if you want to avoid the craziness of the weekend, but if you do come on the weekend, then you might as well stop in Placerville because you can have a nice dinner and wait for all the traffic to subside, so come on up.
I'm a little disappointed you didn't bring apple donuts with you.
I know. November 9th, okay, that's a good call out.
Yes.
Well, I sit on the board of ILT Museum, and it's their 1-year anniversary of their grand opening. It's on October 21st at noon at the ILT Museum, 29 Main Street in Ileton. And on the 27th of October, it's been 100 years to the day that Ileton Bridge is opened. So there's be a ceremony from 12 to noon on that day.
Great. Thank you very much. Anybody else?
One more.
Mr. Chair, I forgot the date because the dates are all running together, but we had a terrific commemoration of the federal funding portion of the third track. That was on Friday, I forget which Friday. They're all running together now. And I was later than you, Mayor Schaefer. I missed the Tom Staller roast. When did we first meet?
You can have a video, special video showing. I don't remember. We met when
I was younger and you were younger too.
Yeah. It was another lifetime.
Right, and we've traveled a lot of public policy, and I'll just say that Tom, we all know Tom often mentored me to be kinder, because I was an advocate for the Building Industry Association. So they said, put a smile on your face when you're telling us something we don't like.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Mr. Chair, I did want to mention that Woodland certified an environmental impact report. The appeal period has expired for our research and tech park. It's on 150 acres. It'll be 2.2 million square feet. We've got a couple exciting locates to be announcing in the coming months. I think this is really good for the region. UC Davis is the largest research university in the country without an associated research and tech park. We're 7 miles from the campus, so we're excited. It's for the region. It isn't just for Woodland. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Very quickly.
Yes, sir.
One of my enduring takeaways from meeting Chair Kennedy will be your passion for Southside. Memorable. Thank you.
Anyone else? All right, we're adjourned. Thank you.